I wasn't supposed to hear it. But the thin walls of their dorm room carried every word like knives slicing into me. "She's lucky he's chasing her," the roommate's voice rang out, sharp with laughter. "Pathetic. Obsessed. Invisible. He doesn't even realize he's just a joke." Another voice, softer, embarrassed, whispered back. "My girl. The one I'd been pouring my heart into for months. She didn't defend me. She didn't stop her. She just laughed along." That laugh, it cracked something inside me. I stood in the hallway, clutching the bag of takeout I had bought with money I couldn't afford to waste, and suddenly, it felt like I was holding proof of my own stupidity. I wanted to burst in. To scream. To make them see me. But I froze, my chest burning, ears hot, legs shaking. Invisible. They thought I was nothing. A fool. A ghost wandering after scraps of affection. But as I turned away, leaving the food outside their door like the obedient little dog they thought I was, something shifted. She laughed at me that night. But she had no idea I'd already decided how she'd pay. College wasn't supposed to feel like this. Everyone said it would be the start of my real life, new friends, new opportunities, maybe even love. But for me, it felt like being a shadow in a crowd of blinding lights. I moved through campus like I was invisible, head down, earbuds in, pretending I was busy when in truth, no one was looking my way. Except her. The first time I saw Clara, she was standing outside the library steps, hair catching the late sun like it belonged in some commercial. She laughed at something her friend said. Her laugh wasn't cruel then, it was warm, disarming. That sound hooked me like nothing else. I told myself it wasn't an obsession, just noticing. Admiring. I saw her smile and thought maybe she could be the one to notice me, finally. So I started small. "Hey, Clara, want me to grab you coffee before class?" I'd ask, forcing casualness into my voice though my heart was pounding. She'd smile politely, sometimes distracted, sometimes warm. "Oh, sure, thanks." That was enough to keep me going. I began waiting outside her lecture halls, walking her halfway to the dorms even when she barely spoke, carrying her bag once when she complained about it being heavy. Each little moment, each thanks or half-smile, felt like progress. Like proof that she saw me. I started rearranging my life around her. Skipped lunches so I could save money for the caramel latte she liked. Stayed up until 3 in the morning helping her finish a psychology essay she totally forgot was due. Defended her in whispers when people gossiped about her being too flirty, too careless. "She's not like that," I'd say, voice low, protective. "You don't know her." In truth, I barely knew her either. But I wanted to. God, I wanted to. And then there was her roommate. Maya. If Clara was the gentle sun, Maya was fire. She was the kind of girl people turned their heads for without meaning to. Tall, sharp-boned, dressed like she knew everyone was watching and she liked it that way. The first time she looked at me, really looked, it wasn't kind. It was, amused. I'd be standing in the hall outside their dorm, waiting with that stupid paper cup of coffee in my hands, and she'd open the door first. Her eyes would scan me, slow and deliberate, and then that smirk would bloom. "Still here," she'd tease lightly, voice dripping with false innocence. I'd laugh awkwardly, clutching the cup like a lifeline. "Yeah, just waiting for Clara." "Oh, of course." She'd step aside dramatically, like she was announcing royalty. "Your queen will be right out." Her tone stung, but Clara never noticed. She'd just grab the coffee, mumble thanks, and we'd walk off while Maya lingered in the doorway, still smirking. It wasn't outright cruel, at least not yet. But it felt like she could see straight through me, like she knew exactly how desperate I was, and she enjoyed watching me squirm. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself that Maya's knowing looks, her whispered little ahs when Clara accepted a gift from me, her raised eyebrows whenever I hung around too long, they didn't matter. Clara mattered. She was kind. She wasn't laughing at me, not like Maya was. At least, I wanted to believe that. Nights blurred into each other. Me sitting in the library typing Clara's assignments while she painted her nails, me running across campus in the rain to grab her favorite snack from a vending machine, me staying awake in class because I'd spent all night rewriting a paper she had half-heartedly drafted. And when I finally handed her the polished work, she'd beam and say, "You're a lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without you." That sentence became my oxygen. It didn't matter that she never asked about my classes, never offered to buy me even a single coffee in return, never texted me first unless she needed something. I told myself love was sacrifice. That if I kept giving, someday she'd see me for who I really was. But every time I caught Maya's eyes flickering toward me, every time I saw her shake her head with that sly smile, I felt my chest tighten. She knew. She knew Clara wasn't mine, not even close. And she knew how badly I wanted her to be. I was just too blind to admit it. So I kept chasing, kept believing that love was about persistence. I ignored the hunger in my stomach after skipping meals to save money for Clara's favorites. I ignored the exhaustion from nights spent on her deadlines instead of mine. I ignored the quiet voice inside me that asked if this was really love, or just desperation wearing a pretty mask. Because as long as Clara smiled when I handed her a coffee, as long as she sighed in relief when I said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it," I could pretend I mattered to her. But behind that door, behind those walls too thin to hide laughter, I didn't know yet what they were saying about me. Not yet. And maybe, if I had known earlier, I could have walked away. Maybe I could have spared myself. But I didn't. I stayed. And because I stayed, I gave Maya the perfect chance to break me. At first, the change was small. Barely noticeable. Clara used to answer my texts within an hour. Maybe 2 if she was in class. But then, days started slipping by. I'd type out, "Hey, want me to grab your usual coffee before the lecture," and all I'd see were those mocking little gray check marks. No reply. But when I'd run into her on campus, coffee already in my hand, she'd smile like nothing had happened. "Oh, thanks, I was dying for this." And I'd force myself to smile back, pretending my stomach wasn't a knot of unease. Pretending I didn't notice that she never texted first anymore. But Maya noticed. She always noticed. I'd be standing there, handing Clara her drink, waiting for the little spark of gratitude, when I'd glance up and catch Maya leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, smirk tugging at her lips. "Dedicated," she'd murmur once, just loud enough for me to hear. "Like a puppy." Clara laughed. She thought Maya was joking. I laughed too, though the sound came out hollow. The whispers started next. At first I thought I was imagining them. Passing by a group of guys outside the dining hall, hearing muffled laughter that seemed to follow me. Girls giggling behind their hands when I walked by with Clara's bag slung over my shoulder. "Does he seriously carry her books?" one voice whispered. "God, he'd do anything for her," another answered. My skin burned. I wanted to believe it was a coincidence. But then I caught a phrase, sharp, cutting, undeniable. "Clara's pet." I froze, blood roaring in my ears. My eyes darted across the quad, desperate to find where it came from. All I saw was Maya, sitting on a bench with her friends, one hand covering her mouth as she whispered something that sent them all into a fit of laughter. Her gaze flicked up, caught mine, and lingered, long enough to let me know. She'd told them. I didn't know how much she'd said, or how many people knew. All I knew was that every time someone laughed when I passed, I felt Maya's fingerprints behind it. And Clara. Clara didn't stop her. One night, it was late. I had just finished editing another one of Clara's assignments in the library. I told myself I didn't mind, what mattered was that she'd thanked me earlier, smiled, even touched my arm when she said, "I couldn't survive this semester without you." That touch was enough to keep me going. I walked to her dorm, tired but satisfied, about to slip the papers under her door. That's when I heard them. Their voices carried through the thin wood. Clara's was light, a little embarrassed. "He's harmless." Maya laughed, that sharp, cruel laugh that never softened. "Harmless? No. Desperate. He'd do anything. Watch." The air went out of me. I pressed my back to the wall, frozen, my chest aching with every syllable. They were talking about me. I waited, praying Clara would defend me, tell her I wasn't some pathetic joke. Instead, her voice dropped lower, but not low enough. "Don't be mean. He's sweet. Sweet. Like a child. Like a fool." Maya's reply was like a blade. "Sweet is just another word for easy. You'll see." They laughed then. Both of them. Together. I stumbled away before I could hear more, my heart pounding, hands shaking, shame crawling hot over my skin. Sweet. Desperate. Harmless. A joke. After that night, Maya escalated. It started with little things. "Hey, could you run to the store? Clara's craving chocolate and you're already here. Think you can print this paper for me? The lab's so far, and you're heading that way. You're strong, right? Carry this box upstairs." She said it all with that syrupy sweetness, her eyes watching me like I was a lab rat in a cage. And the worst part? I did it. Every single time. Because Clara was always there, listening, smiling faintly, sometimes even thanking me. And I needed her thanks. But Maya's tests got bolder. One afternoon, she dropped her phone into my hands, grinning. "Be a darling and run this across campus for me." Left it in the rec center. I hesitated. My schedule was tight, I was already late for a tutorial. But Clara's voice cut in, soft but firm. "Would you? Please." So I went. By the time I returned, breathless and sweaty, Maya was lounging on the couch, scrolling casually through the phone I had just fetched. "Forgot I had another one in my bag," she said with a laugh. "But thanks, you're a lifesaver." Clara giggled. I stood there, humiliated, realizing I'd been played. But I forced a smile, because what else could I do? If I pushed back, Clara might stop asking me for help too. And if Clara stopped needing me, then what was I even worth? That's when the paranoia set in. I stopped trusting anyone on campus. Every laugh, every glance over a shoulder felt like it was about me. My phone buzzed and my first thought was whether it was another favor. Nights blurred together. I'd lie awake replaying their voices, Clara calling me harmless, Maya calling me desperate. Wondering which one was right. I tried to convince myself Clara was different. That she didn't mean it. That Maya had twisted her words. But then I'd see Clara laughing at one of Maya's comments, smiling even as Maya teased me, and I felt the floor crumbling under me. Every day I gave more, and every day I felt less. Less seen. Less respected. Less real. And still I stayed. Because if I stopped, if I let go of Clara, then Maya would win. And I couldn't let that happen. Not yet. The first time I realized something was truly wrong, it wasn't even from Clara. It was from her phone. She left it on the table once when I was helping her proofread a paper. It buzzed with a notification, and for half a second, my eyes flicked down before I could stop myself. A message lit up the screen. Not from me. "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe." Babe. My chest went tight, but I told myself I didn't know. Maybe it was her cousin. Maybe it was a friend teasing her. Maybe. Then another message popped up. "Don't wear me out too much before your party tomorrow, winky face." My hands froze on the keyboard. My blood roared in my ears. She was seeing someone else. And all those coffees, all those late-night essays, all the money I had drained from my pockets to keep her smiling, it wasn't love. It wasn't even friendship. It was nothing. I should have confronted her then. I should have demanded the truth. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because when she looked at me, gave me that tired smile, and said, "You're such a good friend," my throat closed. I wanted to scream, "I'm not your friend, I'm the one who loves you," but the words rotted inside me. Instead, I nodded. I smiled. I stayed. Pathetic. Invisible. Just like Maya said. The second knife came sharper. I got a message from a classmate I barely knew. A guy from one of my group projects. "Hey, dude, you might want to check this out." Attached was a screenshot. My stomach dropped as I recognized it. It was one of my texts to Clara from a few weeks ago. "Hey, just thinking of you. Hope you're doing okay. I'll wait outside class in case you need a walk back." I remembered the text. I remembered sitting there in the rain that night, waiting, clutching an umbrella, telling myself she'd come. She never did. And now here it was, plastered in a group chat. Dozens of laughing emojis filled the screen. Maya's name was there too. "Told you," she wrote. "He's like a lost puppy." Clara hadn't defended me. She'd added her own, "He means well, but," followed by a crying laughing emoji. I stared at it until the words blurred. They weren't just mocking me in private. They entertained me. A joke to pass around at parties, to share with friends. My devotion, my desperation, every humiliating sacrifice, it was a game to them. And everyone else knew it. I stopped going to the cafeteria after that. I couldn't take the whispers, the stares, the laughter that might not even have been about me but felt like it always was. I started eating in my dorm, cold ramen from the corner store, food I could barely swallow through the knot in my throat. But no matter how much I tried to shrink into the shadows, Maya found ways to remind me of my place. "Hey, hero," she'd call out when I passed her in the hallway. "Clara's out with friends, want to sit by her door and wait until she gets home?" Her friends would laugh. And Clara? Clara would just sigh, mutter, "Don't be mean," but she never really told her to stop. That silence was worse than anything. Because silence meant agreement. The final betrayal came at the party. I didn't even want to go. I hated parties, too loud, too bright, too many eyes. But Clara had said, "Come. It'll be fun." And because I still couldn't say no to her, I went. The house was packed, music shaking the walls, alcohol stinking the air. I stuck to the corner, clutching a plastic cup I barely sipped from, my eyes following Clara across the room like she was my anchor. She never looked back at me. Maya was there too, of course. Glittering in a short dress, surrounded by people hanging on her every word. I tried to avoid her, but my ears betrayed me. I caught my name. I turned my head. Maya was in the center of a circle, retelling a story with exaggerated flair. "So then," she laughed, mimicking my voice in a whiny pitch, "he's standing outside in the rain, like some tragic rom-com character, holding this sad little umbrella, waiting for Clara to come out. And she never even told him she wasn't coming. He just stood there for, like, an hour." The group howled with laughter. And the best part, she leaned in, lowering her voice just enough to make them lean closer. "He texted her after, just wanted to make sure you got home safe." More laughter. Who does that? I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just a story. It wasn't just a joke. It was my life. My humiliation. My heart. All of it turned into comedy material for a room full of strangers. And Clara, my Clara, was there, standing beside her, covering her mouth, shoulders shaking with laughter she couldn't contain. She was laughing at me too. Every sacrifice. Every sleepless night. Every skipped meal. Every time I told myself she cared. It was all a lie. I left the party before anyone could see my face. My legs carried me blindly down the street, past the glowing windows, past the shouting students, past the music that throbbed like a heartbeat I couldn't escape. I collapsed onto a bench, head in my hands. The ache in my chest was unbearable. Like my ribs were caving in, like my heart was being crushed in a fist. Shame burned hotter than fire, searing through me until I wanted to tear my skin off just to escape it. But beneath the shame, beneath the sorrow, something else stirred. Rage. It wasn't loud yet. It wasn't violent. It was quiet, cold, settling deep into my bones like ice. I replayed every moment in my head, every smirk of Maya's, every giggle Clara failed to stop, every text they mocked, every sacrifice they twisted into a joke. They thought I was harmless. They thought I was desperate. They thought I was invisible. And maybe I had been. But not anymore. That night, I stopped being the fool who begged for love. I started being something else. I withdrew like someone faking a death. One day I was everywhere, coffee in her hand, assignments on her desk, my face in the margins of her life. Next, I disappeared. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't storm out or throw things. I simply stopped answering texts first. I stopped offering. I stopped showing up unless she asked. I let silence do the work I used to do with words. Clara blinked, puzzled. "Hey, are you okay?" she messaged once, the little typing dots lingering for a long time. I waited until they faded and then wrote, "Yeah. Busy." I left it at that. No explanations. No pleas. No excuses. Maya noticed first, naturally. She didn't look concerned. She looked interested, like a scientist watching an experiment change variables. That was the moment I started studying her the way she'd been studying me. I watched patterns. Not grand theories, small, private rhythms. The way she made entrance scenes in the dining hall, head high, shoulder back, how she always scanned the room for effect before settling into a circle. The cadence of her laughs. The way she baited people with compliments and then rewound them with a quip. Her social moves were choreography, precise, intentional. Vanity was the drumbeat of her life. Her weaknesses sat right there in plain sight, attention was currency, control was oxygen. Push her down the social ladder, and she would choke. Give her fresh territory to hunt, the promise of admiration, and she would throw herself at it. She needed a stage. She needed an audience. She needed confirmation she was still the center of gravity. I catalogued those needs like evidence. I kept a mental file: vanity, impulse, fear of being seen as ordinary, hunger for social proof. I wrote notes in the margins of my life, where she went on Thursdays, which parties she called her own, who she invited to photo ops. I learned which friends flattered her and which ones served as mirrors. My voice grew colder inside my head. Not because I enjoyed it. Because it worked. Hot anger burns and flares. Cold calculation endures. I let the anger drain out of me and replaced it with a steady, clinical interest in outcomes. What did I want? Not Clara. Not in that way anymore. I wanted to make Maya understand the cost of what she'd done. I wanted her to feel exposed. I wanted the stage to tilt. Plan 1, withdraw until curiosity becomes hunger. Let Clara wonder why I'd gone quiet. Let her notice my absence and feel, for once, the absence of my fixes. People value what they miss. But this was bait. The real plan targeted Maya. I began feeding a new story to the world, that I'd moved on. Not loudly. Not with declarations. Small cues. I posted a photo from a study group, my shoulders squared, eyes not seeking anyone. A caption that said nothing. I unfriended a handful of mutuals that Maya liked. I showed up at a different cafe, reading instead of serving. It had to look accidental. If she thought I was performing, she'd be cautious. But if it seemed like I'd rebuilt myself, she would probe. She probed. Maya approached me in the hallway like a cat testing a new toy. You look different, she said the first time, bright as a critique. New haircut? Her smile was an inspection. I let her talk. I let her think she'd reclaimed a piece of me by noticing me. You okay? She asked, half compliment, half assessment. Fine, I said. Busy. Short. Neutral. Like a closed door. Her eyes flicked away, calculating. She needed a reason to get closer. I gave her one without knowing I did. I let small kindnesses slide into her orbit, a returned book, a seat offered in the library, a thoughtful, nonchalant observation about an upcoming event. The idea was to be useful but not needy. To be a tool she could use without realizing she'd been set up to wield it. I mapped her social terrain. If she liked visibility, then expose her to a scene hungry for proof. If she liked attention from high-status friends, then engineer higher-status attention. But higher status must be believable. I made contact slowly. A classmate I'd helped once had an older sibling who interned at a campus radio show. An acquaintance owed me a favor after I fixed a group project's formatting at 2 a.m. Tiny debts built the scaffolding I needed. At night I rehearsed how I'd speak when it mattered. I practiced calmly. I practiced the inflection of someone who had nothing to prove. My rage shut up in my chest like a clipped dog, I fed it nothing but purpose. Then came the first test. I arranged, through a casual comment to a mutual friend, that Maya would be invited to a small gathering, an alumni meetup that doubled as a vanity-fueled networking event. I didn't control the event, only the narrative that made her want to attend. The bait worked. Maya loved the idea of being among a different class of students, older, polished, impressed. She went. I didn't. I made sure she noticed that I wasn't attending because I was busy. She posted a photo later, glass of wine in hand, captioned with a sly emoji. I saw it. I smiled thinly, watched the likes climb, and counted everything as data. Data told me where the chinks were. Maya loved praise from the right people. She craved invitations that confirmed status. If I could engineer a person she admired to be the one who withdrew her privileges at the precise moment she needed them most, she would react badly. Pride sheathed in public pity was a weapon I intended to use. But I'm not naive, the best plans meet missteps. The first setback felt like a personal betrayal by the universe. I'd arranged a string of innocuous favors to make one of Maya's favorite influencers, the kind who mattered on campus, notice and speak well of her. The influencer had been flattered by the rumors I'd seeded and promised an on-camera mention. Then he cancelled. A family emergency. Real and immovable. My scaffolding wobbled. For a week I thought the plan had failed. I watched Maya's posture reset, confidence smoothing out like an armoring layer. For the first time since that party, I considered walking away. The logic whispered, you'll get caught. This will circle back on you. You'll be the desperate one again. I almost believed it. Then I remembered the party laugh. I remembered the screenshots in the group chat. I remembered the way Clara used to look at me when she thought I was nothing, and how she had laughed at me. So I adapted. Failure was not an end, it was an invitation to be cleverer. The substitute target was smaller, yet intimate, her inner circle. I shifted from trying to attract the big fish to knocking over the pebbles that would ripple outward. Maya's need to be admired had another side, she didn't like being unprepared. She hated being called out as ordinary. There was a local fashion shoot, amateur, but with a photographer known to post widely. I arranged, through a friend, for a simple wardrobe blow to occur, a popular jacket bestowed upon another girl in Maya's circle, with a publicized tag and a glowing caption. Small. Petty. Effective. It would make Maya scramble to reassert herself. She did. She called me, actually. It was supposed to be a coincidence. She asked if I could help her pick outfits for an impromptu shoot. "You've got taste," she said in that knowing way, as though she owned the praise she farmed. I could have refused, kept my distance. I didn't. I played along, careful and mild and unremarkable. We spent an afternoon comparing blouses, and she soaked up my attention like one harvest sunlight. She laughed and draped a scarf around my neck like a joke. Her friends saw. They smiled. I let them see me, just enough. There was a thrill in letting her think she'd broken me. She believed she'd pulled me back because she was irresistible. She thought she controlled the scene. She was wrong. The evening after the shoot, I posted a flattering, but quiet, photo of Maya on a community board I knew the photographer checked. It was casual. Nothing scandalous. But the caption highlighted the wrong thing, a small, slightly offhand note about how the shoot had been orchestrated by a mutual friend who liked to create campus stars from the ordinary. The photographer reposted. People commented. The tag chain led to someone Maya valued who commented with an enthusiastic emoji and a short, one-sentence compliment, public, but like a spark that would ignite secondary praise. That was the engine. A little friction caused by envy, and a crowd will generate heat. Maya's posture shifted in the comments. She posted her own gallery, then reposted the photographer's compliments like trophies. Her friends rallied. She basked. It worked because the consequences were subtle. I didn't humiliate her in front of everyone. I merely blurred the mirror she looked into so she had to look again. When people reevaluated her standing, she felt the nudge. And when someone she wanted to impress didn't react as she'd hoped, the instinct to reclaim control kicked in. Small gains gave me confidence. My inner voice remained calm. Keep it practical, I told myself. Avoid spectacle. Avoid obvious traps. Small, persistent erosions are fatal to vanity. Still, paranoia grew inside me, a reflex to my earlier life. I feared being unmasked as easily as I had feared being laughed at. I made mistakes, an offhand message that read too eager, a late-night remark that sounded raw. Maya sniffed. She had the reaction of any predator who suspects the prey is wounded: smirk, test, retort. One night, she cornered me in the laundry room. "You're playing something," she said flatly. Hands jammed into her coat pockets, eyes cold and bright. "I can tell. Don't get cute." My heart punched, hard and ugly. For an instant, my careful demeanor crumbled. I wanted to spit truth at her, tell her what she'd done, what she'd taken. Instead I let the practiced voice work. "I'm just busy," I said. "College is messy. Didn't expect you to notice." She laughed, sharp. "Don't pretend you're on to something. You were always pathetic. Don't think you can flip the script now." Her words were a test and a weapon. She was watching for the seam in my mask. I almost thought she'd ruin everything there, in the hum of that damp room. But then she shrugged and left, the same smirk I'd learned to loathe swelling across her face. That moment could have broken me. It didn't. I'd learned to accept the close calls. Each one taught me restraint. I couldn't let a single fight derail the architecture I'd been building. Instead I tightened the net. I started to plant little seeds of credibility in places that mattered to Maya. A professor's team praised a project I was part of. A student-run magazine liked an opinion piece I submitted. I cultivated respect where she sought it but had no claim. If she wanted admiration from the same circles, she would be forced to compete on unfamiliar ground. At the same time, I kept Clara visible but distant. I answered when asked, but I refused to be the immediate fixer. She called me once in a panic about a broken laptop battery. "Can you come over?" she asked, breathless. I weighed the choice. Old me would have sprinted. New me paused, measured. "I can help on Saturday," I said. Her voice went soft. "Oh. Okay. Thanks." The relief in her voice was faint, like a borrowed thing returned. She could manage. She probably would. Those hours of scarcity were the crucible. I reshaped myself inside them. I let coldness take a shape that felt like armor. I rehearsed the reveal, how and when to pull the thread that would expose Maya's vanity to the exact people she trusted most. Still, I planned for failure. I set contingencies. If an influencer cancelled, I aimed smaller. If a friend backed out, I had another friend ready. If a cornered Maya turned vicious, she had a sharp tongue that could ruin me socially. I would not engage in insult. I would document. Screenshots, timestamps, clear chains of evidence. She had weaponized my texts once. I refused to let her weaponize anything again without an account of it. I made backup plans that were unromantic but necessary. A cloud drive filled with screenshots. Voice memos with dates. A protocol to leak the right piece of data at the right time to the right person. Revenge, I learned, isn't about dramatic fits. It's logistics dressed in irony. The hardest part was staying cold. People think revenge is a boil that must be lanced. It's not. It's a slow, precise incision. There was a creeping boredom to the routine, scheduling, rerouting, waiting for a status update. I had to be patient in ways my old self never was. Patience is not a virtue. In my case, it was a tool. Night after night I rehearsed the endgame. The perfect moment, in my head, was quiet, absurdly private. Not a public shaming on social media. Not a headline blaring across campus. Rather, a collapse in the private places she cared about most, a friend's whisper, a partner's doubt, the slow erosion of applause she had counted on. I wanted her collapse to be internal, rattling her sense of being admired until she couldn't bear the tremor. I also kept asking a darker question I refused to answer out loud: what if this fails? What if I become exactly the thing they mocked again, desperate, noticed only for my efforts to humiliate myself? That fear was real, and I used it. It taught me to be cautious, to avoid theatricality. Despite all the maps and backups, a tiny part of me still wanted to do something raw. I wanted to walk into the middle of the quad and call her out. I wanted to flood the group chats with everything I'd endured. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I learned that dramatic catharsis offers momentary satisfaction and long-term loss. I wanted it long-term. So I kept building. Each small victory, a subtle shift in a friend's tone, a muted compliment that didn't quite land like it used to, felt like a notch in a ruler. I was measuring the distance between who she thought she was and who she had to become after the truth got loose. The net tightened slowly. People moved in it without knowing. Maya prowled her usual territories, hunting for mirrors. I watched her find that some mirrors were clouded now, a step behind their reflection. And even then, when progress happened and I felt the first tiny thrill of justice, I stayed vigilant. One mistake would ruin it all. One public outburst, one clumsy revelation, and everything collapsed into the old script, me, embarrassed and lonely, them, amused and triumphant. So I breathed. I waited. I sharpened. I waited for the moment when her vanity would lead her to make a misstep that would be undeniable. When the people she wanted to impress would see her for what she was. When the laughter redirected and she had no ally left to laugh with. At the edge of my rehearsed patience, my hands trembled. I felt like a man on a shore, watching for the tide to bring the right piece of driftwood to his feet, only I wasn't building a fire. I was building a trap. When the trap would close, I didn't know exactly how it would feel. I only knew what it would not be, a return to pleading. That was the promise I made to myself, stitched in silence. I would not beg. I would not cry. I would let the world do the arguing and the exposing, while I remained outside the frame, calm, collected, the author of the plot they'd read too late. Suspense is a quiet thing. It sits between breaths. It hums. Will it work? I couldn't be sure. Every success had its counterexample. I had the taste of both, victory, and the fear of becoming a ridiculous figure again. But a new voice in me, colder and cleaner, kept saying, keep going. Make her see her reflection without the glossy filter. One small, crucial moment approached that I felt in my bones like a held note about to resolve. I had laid the groundwork. People were primed. She was misled into complacency. A friend was about to offer the final, quiet nudge that would topple her carefully constructed pyramid of attention. I tucked the plan into my pocket like a hand grenade I wouldn't pull until I knew the blast would do what it needed to do. And then came the smallest, dullest sound, a notification on my phone. A message from someone I'd been courting as a potential vector. Simple. 2 words. Ready when you are. My pulse hit a steady drum. The chessboard was set. The pieces were in place. I felt something close to calm, sharp, metallic, and strangely sweet. I had spent months building this. Nights where I'd wanted to scream and nights where I'd wanted to curl up and be unseen. I paced back and forth through those nights and found them tempered into resolve. Now the choice was easy. Move forward, or lose the only thing that had become mine since they stole my dignity, my control. I tapped a reply. Do it. She always knew how to make a room tilt toward her. That was the thing, she needed it. She breathed with it. She preened in the reflection of other people's eyes. So I used that as a lens. I started small and slow. I gave her compliments that sounded sincere. I listened, really listened, when she spoke about hair treatments, about the right angle for a picture, about a throwaway joke she'd like to nail in front of certain people. I learned her language, which words soared and which sank. I flattered her in private in a way that felt tailor-made. I offered an opinion on a blouse as if I'd always had impeccable taste. I praised her for things she didn't even expect me to notice. God, you always know what works, she said once, leaning close in the laundry room. She smelled like the shampoo she favored, citrus and something floral. You're actually useful, weirdly. The boast in her voice was a snag. She'd always thought of me as useful in the performing way, fetching things, fixing things. Now it was useful as praise. She began to lean on me. Not for errands. For validation. That was the subtle shift. She started to text me first. Do you think this dress reads fun or classy? She sent at 2 a.m. Both, I replied. Short. Calm. Exactly. Her typing bubbles lingered, then a string of heart eyes. You're the best. She asked for last-minute help with a caption. She asked what filter to use. She asked me to come with her to a tiny shoot at a cafe because, it's always better when someone gets my angles. I never rushed to be there. I let her ask twice. I answered in a way that felt like choice, not hunger. I put the spacing between what she wanted and what I gave. That gap made her feel it. That gap made her think I mattered on my own terms. She grew hungry for the gap. She started bringing me in front of the people she wanted to impress. She wanted me to be part of the myth she curated. I let her. At the rooftop party where she introduced me as a guy from class, I smiled and nodded and stayed quiet while she worked the room. She looked radiant. She wanted a witness. I was one of hers now, somewhere between token and trophy. Then I offered her a confidence she hadn't had before, an introduction. A real one. Hey, that's Jonah, she told a young woman at the party who looked like she might be a producer or someone who mattered. My pulse kept steady. I moved smoothly and made a remark about a recent event I knew the woman cared about. The woman's eyes lifted, interested, and for a second Maya shivered because the person she sought approval from listened to me. It was the tiny public shift that mattered. Her smile faltered for half a breath. She retreated to reassess. You can't force arrogance to fall. You have to make it wobble. You have to get the audience to look the other way for one meaningful beat. From that beat, I built everything else. I'd planted a friend in a few strategic places over months, little favors returned, small kindnesses cashed like coins. That friend was my amplifier. She was also the one who would deliver the proof. I gave her tiny pieces of data, curated, crystalline bits, a screenshot here, a date there, a voice note trimmed to show the truth but not yet broadcast. She kept them close. We needed the right stage. Shame thrown wide on social platforms can look theatrical, an overreach. I wanted a private crush to collapse in private places, the places that hurt precisely because they were personal. So I went for the inner circle. There's a ritual in groups where everyone trades confidences like currency. I watched it for months. I learned the cadence. I started feeding one friend small, believable half-confidences about hearing something from a reliable source. People lean into gossip. They fill in blanks. I kept the story precise and slow, leaving no room for flamboyant claims that others would question. And then the first concrete thing came together, the organizer of an exclusive campus event, someone Maya longed to impress, messaged me, casually, asking if I could forward a collage of photos from last month's shoots. He asked because he trusted someone who trusted me. I sent over an album that included an innocuous file. Inside that file was a picture of Maya at a small party laughing while a group chat on a phone screen displayed screenshots of my old messages, my offers, my small pathetic pleas, clustered and mocked. It was not maliciously staged, it was simply there. People send things without thinking. And that casualness would be the vector. The organizer forwarded the album to a few people, including a friend of Maya's who adored her. They saw the image. Their eyes landed on the messages. One of them read my text to Clara, "I'll wait outside," that I'd sent at midnight. Another was a screenshot of me giving Clara a sweater. The messages were annotated with small snickers. It was like watching a painting being seen by critics for the first time. They asked questions in the chat. Someone laughed. Another asked who had taken this. The person replied, "Oh, Maya's roommate sent it." I thought it was funny. The tenor was light, thoughtless. People hit thumbs up, then continued with the evening. This was how the slow leak began. It's not a tidal wave, it's a chain of small water drips that fill a bucket. Eventually, the bucket overflows. Maya felt the drip before everyone else. She texted me fast, too fast. "Did you hear about that?" she asked. "Someone posted something weird." "Yeah," I typed. Neutral. "Saw it." She swore. "I can't believe this." "Who would?" I paused. I could have feigned anger. I could have leapt into defense. I didn't. I asked, instead, "Do you want me to come by?" She hesitated. Then, yes. She needed me to take charge. She wanted a fixer. She needed someone steady to ride this storm. She wanted to watch me pump myself into usefulness. I went. I arrived with a calm that felt almost clinical. I sat with her on the couch while she scrolled through the messages, her face growing hot and tight. Her fingers trembled. "They're talking about me like I did this." She kept rubbing at her temple. "Like I planned it for attention." "You didn't," I said. "You'd never." She looked up, searching my face for a savior. For someone to steady the narrative. For someone to take the pain and make it a story where she remained untouched. I did what I needed to do, I offered a rehearsal. "Here's what we say," I told her. "We say it was a prank. We say we're upset. We say someone photoshopped or they took a picture without context. Keep it short. Keep it blunt. Don't feed the fire. She breathed out a laugh that sounded like relief. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. That was the knife. It entered quietly. Because when she thanked me in front of people, grateful, relieved, clinging, she displayed me as her ally. She displayed me as someone who would fix things for her. She displayed me as her support. She made me an asset. The more she leaned on me, the more evidence I had to use. Her proximity to me became the telescope through which other people observed her, her reliance. Her tendency to cultivate allies and then cast them aside. If she had made me useful, she had also given me the vantage point to gather everything she had done. That advantage allowed me to choose my strike. When the momentum of gossip had just enough weight to push, I pulled a thread that would unravel the private performance. I chose a quiet place. A small group of people gathered at an off-campus coffee spot, people who counted on campus, a mix of organizers and influencers who could tilt reputations. I asked my friend, the amplifier, to bring up a casual conversation about campus cruelty. The topic was safe. We framed it as an exploration. People engaged. I let the conversation breathe. Then, as if in passing, my friend said, "Did anyone ever see those screenshots from that dorm last month?" It felt kind of mean. Heads turned. Phones were pulled. Someone read aloud a single line, "He's like a lost puppy." The collective sound was a chuckle and a shiver. Maya's name came up. She was, by now, the center by proximity, the one who'd had the photos circulating. I watched her on a small screen, the micro-expression that flared when a flame licked close to its fabric, surprise, then click, then carefully arranged indignation. She defended herself, swift and practiced. No, it was a joke. It was all a joke. You all know me. I would never. Her voice broke somewhere under the weight of having to explain cruelty as play. That was the opening. The rest I did in private. I arranged for a small, private leak. Nothing mass. No firestorm. Just enough ropes to make her inner circle question. An anonymous message, from a throwaway account, landed in a private chat. Does anyone remember who shared those screenshots? I have a copy. Seems mean. Used to be on someone's phone at a party. That message seeded doubt. One person replied, I think it was Maya's roommate. Another wrote, no way. The second thought fermented into the first. From there, people started asking quiet questions. A few of the people Maya valued began to ask her casually if she'd been involved. Her responses were swift and overeager. No. I'd never, then a pause. But I might have laughed. It was dumb. I'm sorry. Small. Enough. Repentance, even half-hearted, is different from strength. It makes you look weak because you apologize before you're forced to. It makes people reframe their admiration. They begin to ask themselves what else this person would do for fun. The shift was not dramatic. It was surgical. And then the final piece clicked into place. I'd been saving the cleanest bit of proof for last, a set of voice memos Maya had recorded with a group of friends. She'd done it once, thinking it was private, about how they had set up the poor guy, and how it was hilarious to watch him keep coming back. She'd said the word puppy in there, and laughed. She'd boasted about how they made him vulnerable and that it was adrenaline to watch the performance. She'd recorded it to share with friends. One of those friends had left it on a shared drive. That drive was where my friend found it. My friend sent it to me. I listened with a cold head, noting timestamps, the cadence, every recorded laugh. I didn't post it. Not yet. I contacted a handful of people who mattered, an editor at the student magazine, the organizer of the events Maya chased, and one older alumnus she liked to impress. I sent them a short message, private file. Listen if you want. It's audio from a dorm party. No context. No flourish. Curiosity did the rest. They listened. They reacted privately. Someone wrote back, "Wow." Another said, "This is not cool." The alumnus replied, "We should talk about this." They did. I let them process it their way. Their consternation spread in measured waves. A couple of them asked me for more context. I gave it. Short, factual, unemotional context. I let no anger leak into my tone. I kept to the facts. I let the audio speak. Once the audio circulated among that curated group, things moved with the speed of consequence. People who'd admired Maya withdrew a little. Invitations slowed. She texted people who once rushed to her aid. She got fewer enthusiastic returns. People who demanded narratives about themselves found themselves with a narrative suddenly uncomfortable to maintain. She tried to steady the ship by turning the blame outward. She locked down her social accounts, posted a vague apology about not realizing how my words landed, and tried to smooth things with friends. But what I had done was not to break her publicly. I had cracked the glass in the places she relied on most: friends, fans, approvers. And when you rely on approvers, their doubts are worse than 1,000 angered enemies. It was the way she looked at me after the audio leak that finally told me she understood. Not the words. The collapse was small. She stood in the doorway of the dorm like someone who tripped and realized they couldn't hide their fall. Her mouth opened. Closed. She reached for some insult and found only a gasp. "You, how could you?" she said to me on Friday, voice thin. "I didn't do anything you didn't do to me," I said. My voice was soft. It had the coldness of a person speaking farewell. I collected evidence. I showed it to people who mattered. They decided. She was furious and stunned and terrified and pathetic all at once. She tried to bargain. "You set me up." Her hands clenched into fists like she might strike. "This will ruin me." "You ruined me first," I said. "You turned me into a punchline." She began to cry in a way that was performance and also real. The irony wanted me to relish the sound. The older, sharpened voice in me refused to gloat. Instead, I did something quieter and keener. I walked away. I let the rumor do the rest. I let the people who mattered watch her make small stumbles and apologize and realize their applause didn't return as before. I let the social currency she had hoarded dwindle like a bank account drained by a slow thief. There was one last scene left, because some wounds needed to be closed. Clara, who had taken part in the laughter, found me a week later in the library. Her eyes were raw. "I didn't know she'd go that far," she said. "I thought it was just a joke. Jonah, I'm sorry." Her apology was not for me so much as for the image of herself. She wanted catharsis. She wanted absolution. I looked at her. I thought of all the nights, the coffees, the papers. I thought of the time she'd laughed at my life. For a breath, I felt old anger like a flame. Then I made a decision I had rehearsed for months. "I accepted your thanks when I thought it meant something," I said. "You never asked what I wanted." Her mouth opened and closed. "What do you want?" she whispered. "Nothing from you," I said. "I don't want to be fixed. I don't want your leftovers. I want the thing I lost back, my dignity." She sobbed then, quieter now, because apologies for self-image come softer, like a hand on a bruise. "Please," she started. "Please forgive me." I cut her off with an even calmer sentence. "Forgiveness isn't a currency you can spend," I said. "You gave me reasons to stop asking for it. You laughed at me. Now you're asking me to undress that memory. I don't owe you that." I stood up. I left. I walked out into the bright, merciless afternoon and felt the weight of decision behind me. It felt like a removed glove. It felt necessary. In the days after, Maya's followers thinned, invitations cooled, and her smile at gatherings stopped being effortless. She grew smaller in the places she'd expected to be large. That, for me, was satisfying enough. But there was another element I hadn't planned exactly, the way people would reinterpret their own behavior. Some apologized. A few didn't care. Many turned away. I watched the social architecture rearrange in real time. It was not perfect justice. It was closer to the truth. Consequences leak slowly. They leave marks that don't erase everything. They create a landscape where people either change or remain the same, only now with a quieter awareness. As for me, something had shifted permanently. I wasn't the person who waited outside doors anymore. I had learned to be silent and to plan and to be patient. I had learned the cold arithmetic of leverage. That knowledge didn't warm me. Sometimes at night a hollowness opened and I missed the small, stupid hope I'd once clung to. But I would not return. Not to Clara. Not to that version of myself. The final time I passed by Maya in the hallway, she looked at me with something like hatred and fear braided together. She mouthed a single word, "Please," that could have been remorse. I kept my eyes forward. I did not answer. She'd fallen. Not into ruin. Not into criminality. But into a place where applause no longer came automatically. She found herself having to perform humility, awkward and brittle. She realized how easily one laugh could be recorded and replayed. She learned the sharp edge of consequences. When I think back, I don't think of melodrama. I think of small, decisive moves. Of patience. Of letting people show the world who they were and then making sure the people they wanted to impress knew the truth. I'd wanted her to hurt. I wanted her to feel the terrible empty feeling of losing the quicksilver of admiration. I wanted her to see herself reflected in the eyes of people who'd once carried her like a trophy, and find the reflection cracked. She felt it. I felt it. The world adjusted, imperfectly. Life went on. And in the quiet after, when the echoes had settled and the campus returned to its measured rhythms, I realized I'd become someone else. Not kinder. Not sweeter. Sharper. More cautious. Less visible to those who sought easy prey. Less willing to let my life be a punchline. That night, I remember it clearly, I stood in my room and looked at my hands. They were steady. They had done what I'd promised them to do. I had stopped being the fool who begged for love. I had become someone else. And I would never be invisible again. I used to tell myself that all I wanted was to be seen. If Clara looked at me a certain way, if she smiled, if she gave me some small proof that I mattered, then maybe I'd stop feeling like a ghost. That was the lie that kept me on the leash. The truth was simpler. I didn't want her to see me, I wanted everyone to. I wanted to step out of that corner where I stood with coffees and assignments and watch the room turn in my direction. Now, when people glance at me on campus, they don't laugh. They don't whisper, "Puppy," under their breath. They lower their voices when I pass. They wonder what I know, what I've seen, what I could do with it. And Maya, well. She doesn't smirk anymore. She doesn't hold her court of admirers like she used to. She still goes out, still posts, still tries to play the role. But I see the cracks. The hesitation before she speaks. The glances over her shoulder. The way her laugh falters if she thinks someone might be recording. She once called me invisible. Now she can't go anywhere without seeing the shadow I left behind. And Clara? I stopped chasing her the night I learned the truth. She was never mine to lose. She never had the power to break me. Not really. But Maya. Maya will remember me. She'll remember the boy she mocked, the boy she played with, the boy she called desperate. She'll remember that he smiled, bowed his head, fetched her favors, until he didn't. Until he turned all that humiliation into a blade sharp enough to cut her from the inside out. I never got the girl I chased. But I made sure the one who mocked me would never forget me.